Hey, what's going on, guys? Tyson back with you. Today we're here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Absolutely beautiful day. As you can see, I got a little bit too much sun yesterday, but I'm all sunscreened up and back at it today. Now I'm here with Josh Lamb, co-founder of Espin Bikes, and we've also got Bobby here, who is the owner of Fat Rides USA, soon to be Scottsdale, Electric Bikes of Scottsdale, is that right?
That's correct. We're rebranding ourselves right now as Electric Bikes of Scottsdale.
Right on. So we're going to dive into that a bit later. We're going to check out Bobby's shop, but today we are here looking at the Espin Reine. I'm saying that right? The Reine? Yep. What was that named after again? Can you remind me?
So the Reine is named after a town in Norway. My wife is from Norway, and so the name Espin is actually, it's a Norwegian, it's the name of a character in a Norwegian folk story. And his story behind that is he's kind of like the younger brother with two older brothers, and he's the smallest one and the smallest one, I would say. But he's always learning to outsmart his brothers and outwit his brothers. So we kind of see ourselves as the small player who's taking on the market.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it also goes along with electric spin. So it's kind of like a play on words.
But Espin and not E-spin. I remember you said you get that quite a bit.
Espin.
Yep. So not E-spin, which I can see a lot of people having that confusion since it's an e-bike. So Espin is the correct way to say it. Now, the Reine bike here does only come in one frame size. It's a 17-inch frame. You get two different colors here. We have the air blue, which we've got here, and then there's also a fern green. Now, speaking to it being in just one frame size, this is a very adjustable bike. You get a pretty long range in terms of the stock seat post for adjusting that up and down. You can get a really low minimum saddle height. I think it was around 36 inches. And if you do go all the way up, you of course can adjust that stem up or down to fit different height riders. So this is definitely a one size fits most bike. It does an awesome job being approachable in that way. And this one here, as you can see, we've got a mid-drive motor here. And this bike, to me, this looks like great competition for bikes like the Giant Lefree or the Electra Townie. We're seeing a lot of similar stuff from the Lefree that we looked at earlier. We've got the carrier-mounted battery back here, nice integrated fenders, and this one really kicks it up a notch. I love this bike. We've got integrated headlight up here, nice and bright. It does a fantastic job of actually lighting the road as opposed to some lights that are really more about just being seen and safety. This does both, even has an extra reflector on the bottom. You also get an integrated light on the back here. This is a battery pack integrated light. You do have to turn it on and off with the button. It does not turn on from the control pad, but we've got an optical sensor right here. So this can turn on by itself when it gets dark. That's awesome. We're not going to show you guys that yet. They have a pull tab right here to keep the battery from activating from that. But that is how that works. And as you can see, step-through model, super approachable on this. We measured it, and it was only about 18 inches for the standover height there. And so this bike can adjust well to fit a whole lot of people, be easy to get on and off. The step-through is great with the rear rack, because if you are, carrying a backpack or you put some stuff on the rear rack back there, you can step through, get on and off easy without having to try to swing your leg way up and over. All right, guys, so then we're gonna take a look at the motor here. So we've got the mid-drive motor here. This is a TTIUM Discovery, and this is one I haven't worked with yet, actually. I'm pretty excited about it because it's got some exciting stuff going on. Josh, what can you tell me about this motor, and why did you guys decide to use it?
Yeah, so the TTIUM motor, it's one that we came across. I'm actually close with the founders of the company, so we work very closely with them. I found that, so their background is they're aerospace engineers, and they weren't happy with a lot of the motors that were out there. So instead of trying to re-engineer, they completely designed a new motor from the ground up. So this one's actually a lot smaller and lighter than anything else out there. It's about 2 pounds lighter than other motors, but still not lacking in power at all. So it still delivers on a lot of torque. This one's 250 watt motors, but has 80 newton meters of torque, which is pretty high.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. 80 newton meters of torque does great, especially if you're trying to get started on a hill. And it measures torque, and it also measures your wheel speed. And the response time on this is great too, right? We're looking at like 10 milliseconds, right?
10 milliseconds, so it's very responsive. It's almost instant.
And that is awesome, especially if you stopped on a hill, or even if you're just going from a stop and want to get started. We do have a thumb throttle on these bikes, but with that responsive of a mid-drive motor, you don't even need the throttle to get started. You know, it's still great to have, but for a lot of other bikes that use just a cadence sensor, you need it to get going. This bike can just get started all by itself using that torque sensor. And another great part about having these mid-drive motors, especially ones that have an auto mode, it helps them to be really efficient. And when you combine that with our battery pack back here, we got 572 watt hours of capacity, and that gives us an estimated range for this bike of 40 to 80 miles, which is awesome. That's a huge range, especially if you are using that auto mode and you're pedaling. You can go a long ways on this bike, probably further than you would want to go just from starting to get sore from riding so much. So that's fantastic. It can handle a commute there and back for typical to even long commutes without having to charge in the middle. Love to see that. And pretty lightweight on this bike too. I think it was 51 pounds. And I was impressed with all the bikes from Espin. We're going to look at some other ones today. They did a great job on listing the specs on their website and also on nailing the weights. I weighed both of them and it was like right on the money, exactly what it said. So nice job on that, you guys. Let's move up here. We're going to take a look at the cockpit here. And this is, we have these nice swept back handlebars. The grips on here are rubber, ergonomic, and locking as well. They feel awesome. It's a really comfortable ride, and you can adjust it quite a bit. As you can see, we've got a lot of spacers here to raise the handlebars up, and then you can also adjust the angle here. You can get a good 50 degrees worth right there to position those just right. And we've got hydraulic disc brakes here. These are Zoom is the manufacturer. They do come with motor inhibitors, so awesome. That's a great safety thing right there. So they'll cut power to the motor as soon as you squeeze the brake levers. And moving down here for the brake rotors, we're looking at 160 millimeters front and rear. We've got dual piston calipers. These brakes feel awesome. They do a great job of stopping power. And we'll let you get a look at the one in the back here as well. I like the red on them too. A little bit of extra color. Yeah, a little bit extra there. And we mentioned we get fenders here. These are plastic fenders. So the type of fender you get is always going to have its pros and cons. Plastic, it doesn't bend, it doesn't scratch and rust like, you know, aluminum alloy or steel might. Plastic can sometimes be rattly. Just make sure you have those tightened on there correctly. They've got these rubber guards on the bottom here. These protect it. They have a little bit of extra protection for mud and water and stuff like that, and they're also flexible. That way, if you hit that with your toe, let's say you're turning while you're pedaling, that's not going to break the fender or completely knock it off, you know, off kilter. Okay, guys, so we're moving back up to the cockpit now. We're going to take a look at the control system here. I'm going to stand so I'm shading the screen just to make it easier for you guys to see. Now, this screen is plenty bright enough to see during the daylight. Sometimes the camera has a little trouble picking it up, but they did a great job in terms of contrast. We have, you know, black background with white text for all the important stuff. Makes it easy to see in broad daylight. As you can see, we've got a 5-bar battery readout here, and that works pretty well. We like to see percentages when we can, just for it being a little bit more precise. Certainly gets the job done. You've got your speed here, current speed, and then you can press the set button. I think it was the set button just once on here and cycle through. You can actually see your current cadence, which is awesome. We don't see that on a lot. And you can press set again to see there you have your total miles, and then you can press one more time to get your trip, and you know, both your miles and your timer, which is awesome. And taking a look at the control pad here, we have our plus and minus and that's for changing your levels of assist. So you can, you know, all the way down off, and you can go up through eco, normal, sport, and turbo. So turbo is where you're going to get the most power. And on these ones, you do have the throttle right here on the left grip. This is a trigger thumb throttle. And you get full power from the throttle and any level of assist, which is really nice. There's some bikes that limit that. So if you're in pedal assist level 1, the throttle will only give you a little juice and maybe get you to 8 or 10 miles an hour. These bikes, you get full throttle in any level of assist except off. I really like that. That way, if you just need a quick burst of speed, you don't have to shift all the way up into a higher level of pedal assist. That is awesome. Now, this bike has something that we haven't been seeing on very many bikes, which is an auto mode. What was the name of the auto mode?
iSport.
iSport, right. And I think that was you hold down the plus here, and then you'll see, boom, iSport. So when you turn on iSport, it's similar to auto mode like we've seen on a lot of other bikes, and that lets the motor pay attention to how much torque you're putting on the pedals, wheel speed, and various other factors, and will just adjust the level of pedal assist accordingly. Makes it really awesome to ride. You don't have to micromanage which level of assist you're in nearly as much. Bobby, what's you own a shop, you love Espin bikes, right? Haven't been able to get you to stop talking about them. So what's your experience with the iSport mode, and what do your customers think about it?
Well, the iSport is new to me. When I first got the bike and I was going through it, I was just using the pedal assist, the Eco, the normal, the sports, the turbos. And I was talking to Josh and I'm like, hey, this is nice, but where does it really stand out? And his bikes are so exceptional that I'm like, what is the true difference? And he's like, have you played with the iSport mode yet? And I was like, what is that? And for me, it was it made night and day of what the bike really was and how special it was. Holding down that iSport and getting that torque and not have to fumble through pedal assist 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, as you're riding, you know where you want to be, and it's just nice that it has that system where it just does it for you. It automatically thinks about how you're pedaling and how much torque it thinks you that want, and it's very clean, it's smooth, and effortless, and it's just been a huge selling point for me. Since discovering that one little option, I probably sold about 5 of these bikes, and everybody who gets on it is like, it's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. And it's like Bobby said, this thing is very quiet. We'll be getting on it a little bit later to do some test riding so that you can check that out. And this, like we said before, measures both torque, cadence, and it also measures rear wheel speed. You can see the magnet right back here on the spoke. Keep an eye on that. You know, if that gets bumped or knocked off of there, that can mess with the operation of the bike. It's small enough that it'll help to keep it safe, but still, that's an exposed component, so make sure that you keep an eye on that. Okay, guys, and then finishing up with the control system here. So we've got a couple extra options that we didn't talk about. You can press and hold set right here. That'll get you into your settings. And we've got a rich settings menu here, easy to navigate, which I really appreciate. There's a lot of electric bikes that have some really cryptic settings menu where you just have, you know, P1, P2, P3, all these different things, and it doesn't really tell you what you're doing, so you got to find a manual online. It can be a huge pain to work with. So here, it's nice and easy to read. We can arrow down here to set, hit the set button again, and you can adjust brightness. You have your power mode, wheel size, auto power off, and then you can go back, of course, and you can also go down to system info, and it's a similar thing that'll just tell you what all those settings are at. Clear data, you can reset your trip data. That way, if you are tracking individual trips, you just reset that here. We're going to exit back out of that. And then we do have lights. As we mentioned, we've got that integrated headlight, and if you want to turn that on, you just do a quick click on the power button here. As you can see, it dims the LCD screen, and we get that light to turn on there. You do have to use the button on the rear light to turn that on. Just make sure you remember that for turning that off and on. You can quick click power again to change that. And to change your readouts on the screen, of course, to see like your trip timer and stuff like that, it's just those quick presses of the set button. Now we also, in the cockpit, we do get a flick bell here on the right. All right, guys, so looking at the shifters on this bike, we've got some really high quality stuff here. We're looking at Shimano Acera. This is a 9-speed, and as you can see, we've got the gearing readout window. You can do pull to shift up, and then up to 3 to dump down gears. And 9 speeds on this, I want to say 11 to 36 teeth, I believe it was, for the range on here. Shimano Acera is really high quality. When you're looking at the Shimano line, you have Tourney, and then Altus is a step up from that. And then further up is where you get your Acera and Alivio. So great shifting performance from these here. And then moving up towards the front here, we've got standard length 170 millimeter aluminum alloy crank arms with the Wellgo platform pedals. Of course, have the reflectors on the side, great for safety. And we didn't talk about our suspension fork yet. We have got a Suntour NEX suspension fork up here. And we're looking at, it's not too crazy here. We got 70 millimeters of travel, really helps to smooth out the ride. But you know, this isn't something you're gonna take mountain biking, of course. But this helps a lot. For a bike like this that you're looking at more just commuting, city riding, that kind of stuff, having that on the front makes a huge difference with your ride comfort. And you know, looking at a lot of these components on here, we're talking about, you know, Suntour, Shimano, Zoom for the brakes. These are a lot of recognized things here, which helps with the serviceability of this bike. And this is something that we were talking about before. Josh, would you say, so you guys have, was it 4 or 5 dealers in the US? Is that about right?
We're picking up, actually, we're probably getting about 10 by now before we were mostly focusing on online, and now we're developing our dealer network.
But you still do the direct, you kind of do a hybrid, right? You could
we
direct
do like
to consumer.
a multi-channel model. If there's any dealers, if there's any customers that are close to a dealer, we obviously try to direct them to the dealer, but it also helps to have the direct-to-consumer model where if someone's not close to a shop, they can still get
And the dealer thing makes a huge deal, especially for service. You know, for a bike like this, even if you buy it and it works great for a year or 2 years, however long, it's going to need at least maintenance, and you know, something might break, maybe you run into something, so it's going to need maintenance down the road. And so that's why it's great to have those standardized components on there, where it's, you know, pretty much any bike shop's going to be able to service those. But of course, there's quite a few that do service them. And Bobby, we were talking earlier about how easy these are to service, and that's, from what I've heard, one of your favorite things about the Espins, right?
Yeah, I love it. Any bike that's purchased from my store, I obviously will maintain, service, you know, give you any type of assistance that you need over the phone, or I've FaceTimed customers in the past and walked them through some of the different things that we can do. I absolutely love the bike in general, and it's because you can really do anything that you want with it in regards to accessories. It already has a rack on it, but down the road you might want to add a basket, maybe some saddlebags, maybe you want to change out the rack, add some water cages, change out the fenders. What's very different about this bike is it allows you to use normal bike parts on the bike. It doesn't have a patent rack. So a lot.
Right, yeah, it's not frame integrated like you were saying. For some brands, it's just welded on there, and so if you don't like it, it's, well, too bad.
Yeah, it's yours forever, and if something happens to that rack, there's no going back. You now have to replace your entire frame. If something goes wrong with it, you know, you have a standard rack that you can pick up at any bike shop. Wheel diameter is standard. I believe that this is the 195. I've gone up to a 2.3, removing the actual fenders and adding different fenders. Water cages in the front. This is great just to have the accessibility to that.
Love to see that, especially on the step throughs. We have all that space there, so there's really no reason to not have it. And we didn't talk about the tires yet, so we can chat about those. These are the Canada Comfort tires, 1.95 on the width, 27.5 is the size for those. And these, they don't have any reflective striping on the sidewalls for safety, which I always love to see that. It just really helps out on your side visibility. We do get the reflectors that are integrated onto the spokes here, and these ones don't come with any puncture protection. Bobby, you were saying you will just put puncture protection tubes in these typically, won't you?
Yeah, generally when somebody's coming into the store, they're demoing, they're test riding. I know we live in Arizona, you live in Colorado, we get the goat heads. I mean, you're gonna get a flat. And one thing I do want to mention with this is that because this is a mid motor, you have a quick release on the front and back wheel. So this is probably the easiest bike to work on. Anybody who's ever changed a wheel can do it, but those customers that just want it done for them, I put a thorn resistant tubing in all of the bikes that go out for a small cost. Basically, it's just what the parts would cost and a little bit of labor, but totally worth it. You don't need to mess with it. And I have different options. You could use a slime method or some kind of sealant method with a Kevlar liner, or you can go with the puncture resistant tubes, which is my preference personally.
And that's something when you're deciding for yourself if you need it, it really does come down to where you live. Like Bobby's saying, here in Arizona, and for me in Colorado, you have to have puncture resistance if you're going to go out and ride. It's just the nature of where we live. But there's some places where you might not have as much of a need for it. You can maybe save yourself a little bit of cost there. And guys, we're going to take a look at the battery here. We already pointed out we've got it mounted in the rear rack right back here. Charge port is on the side right here. It's on a leash, which is great. That's not going to fall off, and it seals well to keep dust, water, everything else out of there. You have got a battery button right here with an LED readout. It might be a little hard to see on the camera. That'll let you know how charged up you are. And there is a on-off switch that is located on the right side on the underneath right here. So if you ever jump on and the bike won't turn on, make sure you check that, because I completely forgot about it first time I rode it. And if you want to remove the battery, unlocks right here, and then it just slides out. There's a nice little handle on the bottom that helps to slide that out, and so we'll let you get a good look at it. The fuse has easy access right there, which is awesome. And this battery, This was 36 volt, 14.5 amp hour, which is awesome. That is great capacity. I believe that's about 572 watt hours in terms of capacity. So that is fantastic. Not too heavy here, where I think it was about 7.7 pounds on the battery. So if you were to take the battery out and just ride the bike manual mode, you know, you're looking at like a 43-pound bike at that point. That is super lightweight. It's already pretty easy to ride even with the battery. And I do like that the charge port is back here, so that easy to plug in and charge, even if you are removing the battery from the bike. You know, bring it inside to work with you and you want to charge it there. Very easy to do. And we do have the charger out here, so you guys can take a look. This is a 3 amp charger, a little bit higher than average. Most standard ones are 2 amp. This will get you charged faster. We're looking at 1.5 pounds on this, which is awesome. A lot of times the higher power ones, you know, 3 amp and above, have quite a bit more weight. Still only 1.5 on that, so pretty easy to just throw in your bag and take with you if you wanted to charge while you're at work, like we mentioned. All right, guys, and then the saddle, we didn't look at the saddle yet. So we've got a Velo saddle that is a bit higher, a bit of a step up from more generic here. It's pretty comfy in terms of the softness, and you could upgrade this seat post, of course, with a suspension seat post if you need. You know, if you have a regular bumpy ride that you go on, that can be pretty nice. But like we said, this front suspension fork does a lot to soften that up. And rounding things off with some of the accessories that you do get on here, there is, of course, the kickstand. It is adjustable for length, and I appreciate that they've got it mounted on the rear of the bike. That way you can pedal backwards without hitting that kickstand, getting what we call pedal lock. It helps if you need to maneuver this bike at the bike rack or maybe in your garage. And speaking of maneuverability, the bike is balanced really well. It's very easy to just, you know, pick up with one hand if you need to, and just in terms of if you need to maneuver it around in your garage. Pretty lightweight. They did an awesome job with that. You do, of course, get a little bit of frame flex just with it being a step-through frame. And if it's not something that you're looking for, you're probably not going to notice. And honestly, it's hard to build a step through that doesn't have a little bit of it. So just be aware about that. All right, guys, so we're going to go for a spin on the Reine here. And I'm going to hold down the plus here to get it into that iSport mode so we can check that out. Getting started off in a pretty low gear here just in second, and that is so quick, the responsiveness on that. Motor is just fantastic. I feel it instantly. Shift up a little bit here. Just kicks in and out. I love the iSport. You know, it's similar to auto mode on other bikes, and it just does a great job. If you pedal a little bit, you don't get a lot. Pedal hard, and you can see actually the blue bar on this LCD screen jumping up and down, and that's pretty much showing what the motor is doing. So pedal slowly, a little bit, pedal hard, get a lot. It does a great job of working with you. And the motor here, this thing is super quiet. Going to move the camera down and see if you guys can even hear it here, because I can barely hear anything from it. So awesome job for that. I'm gonna let you get a look at the shifter in action as well. I'm going to get shifted down all the way here to first. So you can see that Acera in action. Going back down. Did a great job there. I like being able to dump 2 or 3 going down. Helps out if you get a big hill that sneaks up on you before you're used to it. Really good job on the stopping power too, using these. These are the Zoom hydraulic disc brakes. You can see that one up here. And good smooth performance from those. I haven't ridden a whole lot of bikes with Zoom, so it was cool to try these ones out. They're very quiet, nice and quiet, and I mean, they feel great. They stop the bike very well. All right, we're gonna take a look at these controls here again. We'll switch the camera over. I'm gonna hold down plus, and that'll get me back out of the iSport mode. And so as we mentioned, you can go all the way down here to off and just ride the bike like a normal bike if you want to. You can bump up there to eco. And even in eco, you can see that bar around the outside. That is for the motor helping out. So it responds, it measures torque very well. The harder I pedal, the more I get. And then of course we can go all the way up here to turbo. Now let's check out that throttle in action. This is the throttle right here. Something I like about this bike, we can go all the way down to just eco, but even in eco, if you hit that throttle, then you get full motor power. So you can see we are taking off here. Maximum speed on this model, you're looking at 20 miles per hour as shipped from Espin. Now, you or a shop or whoever can adjust these motors. You can go in there and tweak in the settings, bump that max speed up a little bit. Be careful if you do that, because you're going to be pushing it from a class 2 up to a class 3. And of course, on this bike, since you have a 250 watt hub motor here, it's not a ton of power. It certainly gets the job done. What it's really good at is torque. You know, 80 newton meters of torque, fantastic, but in terms of raw power, not going to get you going as fast as some other bikes might. But we are just cruising around here in Scottsdale. They've got some fantastic bike trails that loop around the golf course. There's a lot of parks. So I'm out here cruising around with Josh and Bobby. Let's see if we can catch up to them here. Sun turn. So check this out. Got a awesome tunnel right here. Oh. All right, guys, that does it for today. Thanks for hanging out with me while I was checking out Espin bikes. If you've got questions about these bikes, or you own one, maybe you've gone for a test ride, anything like that, chime in the comments section here. We've got a full written review back to ElectricBikeReview.com, specs, measurements, you name it. So check that out. We've got a forum there too for Espin bikes, so you can connect with other riders and share your thoughts, maybe get some help if you need it. All right, guys, thanks again, and we will see you next time.